the Hoop Heads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sokol tonight. Quadruple header, easy for me to say. Quadruple header
Mike, I'd like to
of
report a
NBA.
murder. The Miami Heat were murdered.
That was yesterday. That was
Yeah, I know.
yesterday.
I'm just like they're murdered. It's still they're still looking for all the
The
bodies.
culprits are still at large now. I think we know who the culprits were too. I think
Oh
we're
yeah.
good there.
So Mike and I we're obviously we've got you got 8 series to kind of digest a little bit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to do something that do the order that kind of makes the most sense. So we're gonna talk about the Eastern Conference first. We're currently recording this. The second half of the Nuggets Clippers game just started, so we'll see. I don't think that we're going to still be going when the game is finishing up. At least, but we'll kind of talk about what we're seeing, and maybe we'll have an idea of who's going to win the game. But we're going to start. I guess we'll start with the game that happened tonight, and then I really don't think we need to spend a lot of time talking about the Cavs' decimation, destruction of the Miami Heat, but we can touch on it briefly. But the game tonight, okay, Mike. So I know you missed it. You missed the Doc
I was at
Rivers
I was at my daughter's practice, so
the
I've
Doc Rivers
watched.
choke job multiple
I've
times. So I'm going to walk you through this, Mike, and I don't know how much you saw or caught or anything. So I'm going to just kind of walk you through this. So Milwaukee, and it was pretty back and forth the whole game, and they get to the last 2 minutes of regulation. This game went to overtime. Last minutes regulation. Milwaukee gets up like I think they're up 4 or 6, and then they had like two straight terrible possessions. Milwaukee has the ball up two with 30 seconds left, and Kevin Porter Jr. thinks that it's a good idea for him to shoot a shot with 10 seconds left on the shot clock. Um, Let me just say it was not a good decision for him to have the ball in his hands. Uh, Indiana comes down, scores, ties the game up, and then they give the ball to Giannis to do something with for 10.7, doesn't score. Goes to overtime. Milwaukee's in complete control in overtime. They get a 7-point lead, 118 to 111 with 40 seconds left, Mike. Uh, Indiana comes down. Uh, Nemhard hits a three from like 5 feet behind the arc to make it 118 114. Yeah, 118 114. They come down the floor, uh, take, turn it over. Indiana comes down the floor. Tyrese Halliburton basically just beats everyone. No one's playing defense except for this guy who then fouls him on and gets an and one. So now it's 118 117. Uh, by the way, Gary Trent played phenomenal. So I don't want he's going to get goated for this game 100%. He's going to be the scapegoat, but he has a great game, and they're just chucking the ball around, and they throw it at Gary Trent Jr. He fumbles the ball out of bounds, Mike. Uh, Indiana comes down, scores a bucket. Milwaukee doesn't have a timeout. That was the other thing. That was the other problem that happened in regulation too, Mike. With like 2.5 minutes left, Milwaukee only had one timeout left. So they couldn't stem the tide when they had the lead and do something with it because they only had one timeout left. But yeah, anyways, it was pretty embarrassing, but in typical Doc Rivers fashion. You know, it would have only been trumpeted by if JB's team would have blown it tonight. Then it would have been like the two guys who can't seem to make good coaching decisions get blow the games in the same time. So I saw someone tweet, all won't be right in the world unless Doc Rivers gets hired by the Phoenix Suns this offseason.
Yeah, poor Doc. I mean, it's so. What's funny is I was walking out of practice with the other guys that I coach with, and I looked at the game cast. Well, I'd been kind of checking it periodically, pulling a phone out of my pocket during practice and checking it. I saw Giannis miss the whatever 15 footer at the end of regulation that could have won it, and then see that it goes to overtime. And then when I finally checked again as I was walking out of practice, I looked at the game cast and it was 117, 111. I think at that point there was 43 seconds left. And I told the guys as we were walking out, I'm like, oh, Milwaukee's going to win game five. So they're going to game six. That's good for the Cavs. And then just kept the game cast on as Madeline and I got in the car. And obviously then things all went completely bonkers and
So you're
haywire.
saying it's your
And
fault?
I guess the thing with a comeback like this, right, is you can look at a million different things in a game where the winning percentage have a 99.4% chance to win the game or whatever it is when it's 117 or 111. And the Nemhart, as you said, he's like 5 or 6 feet behind the line, which probably is a maybe 30% chance of that shot going in. Then the last Trent, I don't know if you call it a turnover, but just the ball's passed low, but it literally goes right through his hands and then through his leg and out of bounds. I mean, just the fact that it didn't slip through his hand and bounce off his, where he could have at least gone on and recovered it, because there really wasn't anybody near him, because they
No.
got the ball. Obviously, Indiana was trying to pressure him in the backcourt, and he gets the ball thrown to him. There's no one within probably 15 feet of him. So even if it bounces off his knee or it hits his chest or whatever, he still has time to go and recover it. But it's just a perfect storm of goes right between his hands, right between his legs, and out of bounds. And then the final possession, great shot by Halliburton to get to the rim and score, and scores on Giannis, right? I mean, to take the ball from the left wing, beat Giannis to the right, and even as the drive was happening, when I was watching it on replay for the very first time, I'm like, man, Giannis is on him. Like, isn't Giannis going to block that? Even if he gets beat slightly, like his length and his reach, you would think that there'd be a really good chance that he could just outstretched hand in that particular situation and block the shot. And no, he doesn't block it. Halliburton finishes. And then, as you said, the Bucks have no timeouts. So now you got to go the length of the floor, and you end up getting a 60-foot heave that doesn't have any chance. And it's just, when I look at comebacks like that, you always look at just one thing would have gone differently. And it's probably enough for Milwaukee to hold on and win. And it just didn't happen. And it did happen if you're an Indiana Pacers fan. And so Pacers are going to move on and play the Cavs. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But this series, I think it went the way that a lot of people anticipated it was going to go. Giannis was tremendous in the series. I don't know what his final averages are, but he probably averaged somewhere around like 33, 15, and probably close to 8 or 9 assists. And still, it was not nearly enough. Kevin Porter Jr. played 47 minutes tonight. AJ Green played 46 minutes. Gary Trent, who good player, but he's playing 48 minutes. They just didn't have the Bucks just didn't have enough. And obviously the elephant in the room here hanging over all of it is the Dame injury, where even with him coming back, it was kind of amazing that he was going to be able to be back at all, right, from the blood clot. And then for him to go down, and you were watching it live, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when he goes down and then he just sits there, and there was, for a split second, I was like, what's he doing? Why isn't he getting up? And then within a split second, you just realize that, oh, he's not getting
He,
up because he can't. And unfortunately, he has a torn Achilles. And so we'll have plenty of time to rethink and discuss what the Bucks are going to do. But clearly, when you have Dame on the books for close to $160 million or $170 million over the next 3 years, and next year he's not going to be able to play, and the 2 years after that he's going to be a 36 or 37-year-old guard coming off an Achilles tendon injury.
yeah, I mean, there's zero chance he plays at all next year, right? Or like
I wouldn't I wouldn't think
maybe
so. And
maybe
even if he,
maybe he can come back in the first week of March, and at that point,
right, I mean, and he's at what level of effectiveness is a guy who's 35 years old who relies on his speed and quickness and whatever to be able to do what he does. Highly unlikely that you're getting anything at all out of him next season. And then you have 2 more seasons with him after that, because I believe he has 2 full years left in the contract and then one player option, which that player option is worth like $60 million. So hard to believe that he's going to be worth more than that on the open market coming off the Achilles tear. And I would have to think that he's going to pick that up. So if you're Milwaukee, you look at their roster and there's really nothing. I mean, they don't have any
picks, right?
Young players. They don't have any trade assets. They don't have their pick until I believe 2030 or 2031.
2030, I believe is what they said.
Okay. So they've got a couple swaps that they have to trade out with teams. They don't have, and it's just there's nothing for them to do. The bottom line is the best thing that could happen here, unless Giannis doesn't want to, and I shouldn't say the best thing, because if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan, regardless of the fact of whether you can build a championship contender around it, you still want your franchise player, your guy who's been there since he came to the league. You'd rather be, I think, mediocre with Giannis for the next 5 years than trade him away and be more than likely terrible for the next 5 years, but with a theoretical plan. But I can't see where Giannis is going to be happy with that. And if you're the Bucks ownership and front office, it feels like this would be a pretty good time to mutually agree that let's see what we can get for Giannis Antetokounmpo.
It's too bad you didn't try to get Luka.
Well, they tried to make that trade. Remember, there was a comment from John Horst, that the GM for Milwaukee, that he would never make that trade, would never trade Giannis for Luka. And we'll talk some Lakers and Wolves in a little bit, but you can make an argument that that's not the wrong decision for sure. Obviously, Giannis is older than Luka, but as far as sort of a culture setter, it feels like Giannis might be a better culture setter than Luka. So look, I was just looking back or thinking about when we made that prediction about the 12, I think last summer, 12 free agents of maybe it was 2 summers ago, of where they would go. And I think I predicted Giannis was going to end up in Oklahoma City. And if you really look at the options of where he could go, there's a lot of talk that maybe he'd go to Brooklyn because Brooklyn has their picks and they have money. Potentially they might, depending on what they do with their roster. I think they could probably sign Giannis or trade for Giannis and still be able to maybe get one other guy. Does Giannis really want to go into a rebuilding situation where he just has one other good teammate, or does he want to go to a situation where the team might be ready, built to win? And I look at Oklahoma City and Houston as the 2 places that, if you're just looking at it strictly from a basketball standpoint, I think those are the 2 situations that make the most sense. Both of those teams have lots of draft capital. Both of them have lots of young players that could at least be of some interest to Milwaukee, could at least bring you back some value. And you plug Giannis, obviously the Thunder are already the favorites to win the NBA title in many people's eyes. So if you add Giannis to that mix, even if you subtract 1 or 2 of their rotational top 8 players, plus all the draft capital again that they have, it's a no-brainer there. And I think Houston, the same thing. We'll talk about the Rockets and the troubles that they've had against Golden State in terms of their offense. And in a way, Giannis could be maybe a clunky fit there a little bit, simply because part of the Rockets' problem right now is they can't shoot, and Giannis doesn't really solve that. But he certainly solves the problem of putting a top-tier superstar on their team and a way to be able to generate offense on a nightly basis. So to me, when I look at this, I think both Giannis and the Bucks, it makes sense for them to work together to maximize Giannis's value, both for where Giannis gets to go and what the Bucks can get in return. And when I look around the league, it just feels like Oklahoma City and Houston are the 2 places that have the most to give back to the Bucks and still have enough left on the roster and in their draft capital that you're not going to be totally decimated. Whereas he goes somewhere else, maybe.
What about San Antonio, Mike?
Yeah, San Antonio is certainly, I think,
Wemby, Giannis, and Cooper Flag all on the same team.
Well, if that were to happen, and yeah, clearly the lottery and where Cooper Flag ends up could maybe have an impact on a lot of things of what happens, right? You look at New Orleans with Zion and what happens if they win the lottery. And you got some teams that are deeper in the lottery that if they were somehow to jump up and get Cooper Flag, maybe suddenly teams start looking at their team building a little bit different. As it's right now, I still think Houston and Oklahoma City are probably have the most excess young players of guys that they could potentially put in a deal and yet still retain a few guys. Whereas if you look at San Antonio, if you're Milwaukee and you're trading Giannis to San Antonio, you're definitely getting back Castle. You're probably getting back Vassell. You're getting all the draft, whatever equity that they have in the draft. And so then if you're San Antonio, now look, I'm going to say you're left with Wemby, De'Aaron Fox, and Giannis. That's a pretty good trio to be left with. But is that enough for Milwaukee? Could they get more from Oklahoma City or Houston? I would think so in terms of young players back, but who knows? I mean, Houston has
Right.
Reed Shepard, who was the third overall pick in the draft and can't even get on the floor for them. Now, whether that says something about Reed Shepard or about Houston's depth, I don't know. But certainly at this point, looking at it right now, you'd have to say that I would be surprised if Giannis is a Milwaukee Buck come next November. You saw he got in the fight after the game,
Oh
right? Did
yeah,
you see that?
yeah, with Halliburton's dad. It was Halliburton's
Yeah,
dad.
it
Yeah,
was kind of
I,
interesting.
I don't know. It's whatever.
There, there's
All
look,
right, we spent
the pay
17
the
minutes. We're done one game, Mike. One game, Mike.
okay, but can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk. Let's spin it forward now with the Cavs and Pacers and the
I'm not
next
afraid of the
rounds.
Pacers, Mike. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, here's the thing. So the Pacers weirdly like they seem like they shouldn't be. I got a feeling I'm going to hate the Pacers by the time this series is over. Just there's something about them that I feel like is going to rub me the wrong way. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I feel like I'm going to rub the wrong way. Here's the thing with the Pacers. I feel like their offense is very similar to the Cavs offense, except not as good. Like I feel like they move the ball. I feel like they have shooting at a lot of different positions. I feel like they're pretty versatile, but they're just not as good
I don't
as the
remember who said. I
Cavaliers
don't remember who
offense.
has said it, but someone said that the Pacers are a good team, but the Cavs are a great team. Who was it? Who was those? I heard that someone said that. So
I think
that's
it's
what
true.
I'm gonna say.
I think the Pacers offense is good. It's not quite as good as the Cavs, but it's a good offense. On the other hand, I think the Pacers defense is nowhere near the level that the Cavs defense can get to.
I
And
mean, I think
all
the
you have to
Cavs
do is
defense is way better than Milwaukee's defense, right?
I agree. I don't think Milwaukee, yeah, Cavs defense is much. I mean, look at who Milwaukee's rolling out there. AJ Green, not a defensive player. Kevin Porter Jr., not a defensive player. Gary Trent Jr. can be a good defensive player. Bobby Portis, I would say, known more for his offense. They're not a great defensive team. Cavs can certainly be a great defensive team. If you look at what they did to the Heat in games 3 and 4, and I know Miami was sort of dead man walking, and they only
They
won
went out
37
swinging, Mike,
games.
as Chuck would
They
say.
only, they only won 37 games in the regular season, so it's not like they were some juggernaut team that the Cavs blew through. But they were that game, especially the game 4 on Sunday afternoon, was just a game where it felt like you're watching it. Or sorry, that was last night, Monday night. You're
Yeah.
watching it, and it felt like a varsity team going against a JV team, or it felt like a Power Five conference team going against a underdog mid-major team where they just were overwhelmed physically. I mean, Miami would put the ball on the floor, and literally not one of their 5 guys could get past anyone on the Cavs. It felt like they were just stonewalled at every turn. And I mean, the Cavs in that series put everything on display of what this team is all about: the depth, the defense, the passing, the ability to shoot from almost every spot on the floor in every position. And I think I don't know that I'd go as far as to say that I'm not at all worried about the Pacers. I think I just have a tendency to, right? I think you invent things to make yourself worried about your home team. But I would be very surprised if the Cavs don't take care of business. Because again, I think the Cavs offense is better than the Pacers. Pacers have a good offense. Cavs are, I think, a little bit better. And then defensively, I just don't think it's comparable in any way, shape, or form. So I feel like the Cavs will take care of business in that series. But it should be, it's not really a contrast of styles because I feel like both teams offensively play, in a similar
Yeah, I think
style for
I
sure.
I think this is a 5-game series, Mike. I think they win one game. I just don't see it. I don't
I
I'm
can
not
see that.
afraid.
Yeah. If the Cavs play as well as they have in those 4 games, here's the thing. I think one of the keys to that series and one of the keys to the Cavs' success is going to continue to be Ty Jerome. And if he can play as well as he's played both in the regular season and then in this series against Miami, it just gives the Cavs so much more utility and makes them so much better. Now you either have Garland and Mitchell on the floor together, which we know what those two guys bring to the table. And then when one of them sits, now Jerome is playing those minutes, and he's arguably been as good or as effective as certainly as good and as effective as either one of those guys. Not clearly not. He's not as good of a player as Garland or as good of a player as Mitchell, but his production and his confidence and just his ability to disrupt things as a defensive player, and then just his herky jerky off balance floaters and weird jumpers and decelerations and all the things that he does. He just gives them something that not very many teams have, where it feels like you're taking out one of your 2-star guards and you're bringing in a guy who's been almost every bit their equal in terms of production. And then we talked about it on the phone off the podcast that Jared Allen being out last year in the playoffs against Orlando was huge because when Jared Allen is playing well, I think this team goes to a whole nother level when he's playing well. And then the continued development of Mobley. He had a bunch of moves in that series over the course of those 4 games where he's just squaring up and then blowing by a guy for dunks, or he's going in and bodying somebody out of position. And then the confidence of him shooting the three. It'll be interesting to see. He's at the point where I feel pretty good when he's shooting a standstill three. He still struggles if he has to put the ball on the floor or shoot off the dribble or shoot off the move. He's still not quite there yet. And maybe he'll never get there. Maybe he doesn't have to. But you can see the vision of what the best version of Evan Mobley is. And especially after watching Giannis tonight, there's so much of what Giannis does that Mobley does. He's not as good at any of that stuff as Giannis, and he's not nearly as strong. But you can see it. Like you can see that if Mobley continues to develop, that he has the opportunity to be that good and do what Giannis does. I mean, I could see it. Plus, he's going to be a better shooter, and I think Giannis has really developed as a passer over the last 2 or 3 seasons. I think he's really improved tremendously, but Mobley is just, I feel like he has court vision that not many guys have. And if he can just tighten up the handle and get a little bit stronger, it's easy to see in your mind's eye now what Evan Mobley, the level that he can get to. I don't know that even a year ago, I don't think we were sitting here saying we think that Evan Mobley is going to be second team All NBA. And I know we dreamed about him being the number one player on a championship team when this team was ready to contend. And he's still not number one, but he's approaching quickly being a 1B to Donovan's 1A.
Yep, I agree. Mike, did you see my text?
I'm going to look at it right now. I thought you were texting me to tell me that maybe I got. So I got you.
So you've been freezing just quite a few times here and there. Just
All right. It shouldn't
so
it shouldn't affect anything, but we'll see.
yeah. So that's why I just know that it freezes and then it catches up. So then you're speaking like I'm listening to you at 2 times speed. So
There
just
you go.
really
All right. That's
so
it.
it's good stuff. All right. Okay. So um, those two series are done, and then the other series in the East that is done, uh, the Celtics and Orlando. Now, here's what I'm going to say. I thought, obviously tonight the game was close. Orlando had the lead for a majority of the first half, and then they had the lead partway through the third, and then all of a sudden, I looked at the score, and it was like a 20 point game. It ended up being handled. I don't have NBA TV, so I was not able to watch that game very
What
much.
happened? What happened there was Banchero got his fifth foul, and he was out. And shortly after that is when it all completely fell apart. Which is
That fell apart in the rail. Yeah,
watch if you watch Orlando's offense without Paulo in their score, other than Franz going to his right and shooting over Porzingis with runners off the glass, which he made a ridiculous amount of during this series. But he cannot shoot the ball from three at all. He was horrific in the series, which is kind of continuing a trend that started last season in the regular season and then continued on into the playoffs against the Cavs. And he's never really been able to find a stroke. And the fact that he's been as effective as he has been, despite the fact that he can't really shoot a threes in his own head, he's still been a very effective player. But Orlando's offense, like they missed so many just wide open threes. And if there was ever a team that needed to figure out how do we get more shooting on this roster, Orlando is the team. They have to figure out how can we get more shooting around Paulo and around Franz. And at least when those guys penetrate, there's a threat of somebody making a shot. KCP was supposed to be that guy. He was terrible in the regular season, and he was terrible in this series. And so that signing did not work out in any way, shape, or form for them. Paulo's a guy. I mean, I think there's no doubt that he, as a guy who's 22 years old, is going to become a guy that can be the best player on a championship team. I really think he's that good. Defensively, there were times and moments in this series where I didn't love him missing a shot or having something happen on the offensive end, and then he kind of just lollygagged it back on defense. And I felt like his defensive effort ebbed and flowed in this series. But offensively, he's just a load. He's a guy who can handle the ball at 6'10" and whatever he weighs, 270 pounds. And he can shoot it from, again, not super efficient,
yeah,
but clearly part of that is just the fact that he sort of like Cade, right? He just doesn't have the right pieces around him yet to be able to unleash what he can do. And so, look, Orlando gave Boston about as good of a series as I think anybody could have hoped going into it. They could have they were in every game at least through the first half of all 5 games, and even down the stretch they had a chance to win one or two more than what they did. So
yeah. So the bottom line is this: like Orlando made it competitive. Uh, they bloodied Kristaps Porzingis. They beat up Brown and Tatum, but now Boston gets to sit and wait and twiddle their thumbs because Detroit decided that they were going to win. Although, listen, let's be honest here, Mike. Detroit should be winning this series right now, right? They should be the ones up 3-2.
I mean, that series could be over.
With Detroit
It
winning.
legitimately could, with Detroit winning, it could legitimately be over. I
So,
would say if
and
you go through and you add up the quarters and you look at the stretches of time where Detroit has outplayed the Knicks, and I think it would be clear that for the majority of the series, the Pistons have been the better team. The
I
Knicks have
mean,
had
game one
some
they
clutch
lost
moments.
because of the 21-0 run, right?
Yep. Yep.
JB refused to call timeout.
Yep.
I don't know if you were that brings back bad memories. Okay. Game 2 they win. Game 3, uh, you know, that game is probably the game that was the furthest from being close, right? They if I remember correctly. And then game 4, I mean, he was fouled on that shot, and who knows if he makes free throws, but I think there's a good chance he's at least making one. He was taking 3 free throws. He's going to make one of those to tie the game. Probably going to make 2, and there would have been like zero point 0.1 seconds on the clock. I don't know. Detroit's plow played him. I joking, or partially jokingly, sent you a text saying I kind of hope that Detroit wins the series. I think they would at least beat up Boston. I mean, the Knicks are basically going to be they're going to be carrying off in a stretcher in the current state. Josh Hart got hurt tonight. Who knows the extent of that injury? Brunson looks like his ankle is like falling off of his body. And I mean, if the only thing that's left is Karl-Anthony Towns, don't sign me up for that. Okay,
Hey,
which
Towns has
Towns has
been.
been this has probably been the best I've seen him play, right? Like,
I agree.
but I'm just saying
He hit
if
he hit the
that's what we're
two
relying
huge
on,
shots.
I just if that's what we're relying on, I don't know. So I don't know. It probably, as much as I'm like saying Detroit, I think I mean Knicks would probably be the better team for Boston to have to play, but I don't think it's going to matter. Either team plays them, Boston's going to take care of either of those teams. Listen, yeah, it's my opinion. I think I mean maybe I don't know. Who do you think gives the Boston a better run in the current state of things? Detroit or New York?
It's hard to imagine that Detroit could give them a better series than the Knicks, only because of I don't want to say complete inexperience, because Detroit does have some experienced players on their roster, but clearly the most important guy on their team is Cade, who has won playoff series if they advance under his belt. Whereas the Knicks have a bunch of guys that are veterans that have been through some of the playoff wars. But the problem that I have with the Knicks, and I think, you kind of alluded to it in terms of just one, the injuries, right? That's a big part of this whole situation. And then you look at the minutes, and it just, I mean, I don't know how you can say that this Knicks team beat up and relying on their starters to play 40 plus minutes every game. That doesn't seem like a good formula to beat Boston. It seems like maybe Detroit would have a better formula. They play a few more guys and they got more bodies to throw at the Celtics. But I worry about the experience factor. I still think the Knicks would probably give the Celtics a better series than Detroit just from that experience
So
piece. But
okay,
I don't know that the Knicks are going to be able to compete with the Celtics in any way, shape, or form, simply because of the minutes load that Tibbs has put on his 5 starters and the fact that we have no idea how hobbled any of them are going to be. And we saw what happened to the Knicks last year in Indiana, where they just, in the conference semifinals, they just had nobody left. Guys just started dropping like flies.
yeah,
And then you're down into the bottom. You're down in the back half of the roster where you have guys that literally haven't played in weeks and months. So look, you go back and like we said, you look at this series and you could very easily make the case that Detroit could have won all 5 of these games, and they didn't. And so but now they're going back home. I I expect Detroit. I expect that series to be back in New York for Game 7. I expect the Pistons to win Game 6 after what I've seen in the
is
last
it a
2
coin flip in
games.
Game 7? You give him the coin flip, the old coin flip.
You'd have to give the Knicks the advantage, right? I don't know how big of an advantage. So let's say 60-40. I would expect the Knicks, but based on what we've seen, the Pistons certainly are not afraid of playing in New York, right? They've now won 2
Yeah,
games in the Garden in this series, so they're certainly not afraid to go in there and compete with New York. The stage is probably not going to be too big for them. Game 7s always have a little bit of a different feel, but maybe we're overrating the experience. I mean, look, the Detroit does have experienced guys, right? Beasley's been around, Dennis Schroeder's been around, Tobias Harris has been in a lot of big games. So Cade's the guy that we think of. I guess Cade and Duran, right, are
Yeah.
or those are the guys that are important pieces in their rotation that don't have a lot of experience. But by the time you get to Game 7, they'll have played 3 games already in Madison Square Garden and won 2 of them. And who knows? In a Game 7, obviously anything can happen. And I still go back to, I know Towns has been great. He hit those 2 huge shots in Game 4, the big deep 3, and then that fading away over the corner of the backboard shot that beat the shot clock, which were 2 huge shots. And again, Towns has been, I would say, far more impactful than I would have guessed he's been. But I still feel like I feel like his basketball IQ still at some point could end up costing the Knicks. He had the foul today on Cade. Cade's fading away, and Cat's coming over to double team, and there was no real reason to bang Cade on the arm. It was a dumb foul. That was his 5th one. And again, I can't I can't fully I can't fully trust Cat if that makes any sense
Okay.
yet. Maybe you'll prove me wrong, but I just can't trust it.
All right. The NBA officially made it. Sundays are game 1, Mike.
All right, there you go.
Sunday. They have not announced the time because it's going to depend on what other games are going on. So Sunday, game 1. So
makes sense.
All right.
Makes sense.
Okay. We'll shift to the Western Conference. Let's start with Oklahoma City. I don't think we need to belabor this very much. Memphis is clearly, listen, Memphis fought hard considering, but this was done. The series was over. Props to Memphis for not doing the Miami Heat and completely checking out and at least like attempting to play basketball. But yeah, we knew what was going to happen when the series started. We knew it was going to be bad. And yeah, Oklahoma City took care of business. And now they're just sitting and watching these 2 teams beat the hell out of each other. And right now, as third quarter just ended, and seemingly the Nuggets are going to be going up 3-2. They're up 16. Right, Mike? 89-73. Is that right?
Right now I have 10:28 to go in the 4th. Denver's up 105-86.
Oh, yeah, it's over. Yeah, it's done. Dusted. That
Well,
game's dusted.
This was right at the same point as it was in Game 4, and the Clippers came all the way back. Now, granted, that was at home,
And they got
game,
tired, right?
Denver got tired because Denver's in the sort of the same situation. Although Russ is back tonight, so at least they have 6 guys. Maybe they.
Why didn't Russ play last game?
He's had it's a foot. He's had a foot injury the last 2.
Okay.
Whatever. That's why he missed games 3 and 4. He had a foot.
Yeah.
Issue.
Well, anyways, so Oklahoma City's just sitting around watching these 2 teams beat each other up, and they're not complaining. Okay, they're not.
No, they're in the same position as the Cavs. They played a clearly inferior opponent, and like you said, at least Memphis fought in games 3 and 4, unlike the Heat, who basically withered on the vine against the Cavs. I think the Thunder, whatever questions anybody might have had about them, this series against Memphis didn't answer them. And we'll get a better idea of what it's going to be, whether they face Houston or Golden State. I still think that they're probably better than both of those teams. Clearly, I don't know that Houston going against Oklahoma City's defense. I don't know how Houston's going to generate.
Well, they're not going to play Houston or Oklahoma City, Mike. They're going to play the winner of these 2 teams.
Oh, yeah, you're right. They are playing. That's right. because
they're 4-5.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Thank you. So either one of these teams, whichever team gets through this Clippers Nuggets series, is going to definitely challenge Oklahoma City. We'll have a much better feel for who and what Oklahoma City is once they get into that next series.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, Oklahoma City, enjoy your break. All right, we'll go. Do you want? Let's talk about the Warriors first. I wanted to go Warriors first. Let's save the Lakers talk for after that. Listen, I talked to you yesterday. I just felt this is the Warriors, and listen, once again, either the last 2 games could have gone either way. Okay, listen. Oh, this is something I wanted to mention before at the start of the podcast, Mike. I know you and I have talked about it this has probably been the most, aside from like our series and Oklahoma City series, like if you look at the other 6 series, the competitiveness and like the closeness of the games, I can't remember a first round series having this many good like games coming down to the wire, right? Like
Close games, right? But what's funny is that going into tonight, you really only had Oklahoma City and the Clippers. I'm sorry, the Nuggets and the Clippers that were tied up 2-2.
yeah,
Everything else was either the series was over or it was 3-1, and yet all these series feel more compelling, more
but
competitive than a 3-1 versus
yeah,
what we're actually seeing on the floor.
yeah. So, anyways, well, Golden State. I said to you yesterday, I just feel like Golden State's going to win this series, and I think you were still thinking Houston was going to get that win last night, and I don't know
They're
where you're.
right there.
They
They're
were
right
right there.
there.
They were right there. I mean, some terrible possessions down the stretch. I'm not. The Shengun shot was there. So I'm not. I know people are lambasting it, but I mean, like you said
I
to me
didn't
on
I
the,
didn't I didn't I didn't hate the shot. It wasn't look, it wasn't the greatest shot
it
you
wasn't
could
it
ever
wasn't
hit, right?
ideal. It wasn't
No.
ideal.
But when you look at shots that teams get in the final 5 seconds, it's not really very often that you get a Halliburton type shot, right? Where the guy gets all the
Yeah,
way to the rim and gets a layup. That's pretty rare. It's more like you get what happened at the end of regulation in that Bucks Pacers game where Giannis ends up with a 15-foot jump shot being contested. So Shengun got about a 12-foot jump hook that rolled on the rim and hung there for a second and just fell off. I didn't hate the shot. And so people who were hating on the Houston offense in that moment, Houston definitely has problems offensively. And clearly they need to,
they suffer for the same thing as the Orlando Magic offense. It kind of
they just don't have,
becomes
yeah, they don't have enough shooting. They don't have a guy as good as Paolo who can go and play one on one. Shengun's good in the post, but it's hard to have your center as your go to player. But nonetheless, I didn't hate that shot. It just didn't go in. And if you're Houston, you have to figure out where do you turn. And I know last week we talked about the Steven Adams and Shengun pairing, and they went to that in the game last night. And I think Steven Adams was his plus minus might have been the highest on the team. Clearly, I trying to match Golden State and playing small. That's never been a good strategy ever since the Warriors have become the Warriors. It's hard to out small ball them just because Draymond's so versatile in terms of being a defender and being able to bang with bigger guys, at least when he's in control of himself. So if I'm Houston, I think I really, really look at can we keep Steven Adams on the floor and figure out whether or not he can stay out there because I think he's going to be I think he's impactful. I really think he's impactful. So that's what I would do if I was Udoka. Is I would just throw that out there because Jalen Green's had one good game. Other than that, he's been terrible. Van Vliet was, I think, 6 for 29 from three before last night, and obviously had a big game, but came up short on the game winner. Houston just has difficulty being able to puncture the defense, and then where do you go with the ball to get somebody that can consistently score? Everybody loves Amen Thompson, and he had some nice drives to the hoop, and especially in the second half, but he can't shoot, and that lack of shooting makes it difficult for him to be sort of the hub of your offense. Jalen Green really should be the guy. That's the guy that Houston is missing. Theoretical Jalen Green is the guy that would fit perfectly in the Houston Rockets offense, but
yeah.
that guy unfortunately just doesn't show up very often.
Mike, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, your video is off of your voice, and it's really driving me nuts now.
Well, don't look at it. Just go off the screen.
All right. Um. Uh. So I think Golden State wins the series now at this point. I just don't see any way. I don't think they lose 3 games in a row. Do you agree with me on that statement?
Well, I could see them winning game 5 at home. Then you come back and you say they're going to go and play in Golden State. I told you, I don't think that they can win. I don't see them losing as the Warriors. I don't see Steph Curry going down with 3 straight losses. I think there's a big Steph game, certainly 1 out of 3. If that's all you need, there's a there's a 35 plus 6 or 7 3 game from Steph that I think is what you need to be able to push you over the top. And they only need one of those to be able to advance to the next round. And so, yeah, I would be very surprised if Houston was able to come all the way back and win this series. Clearly, from 3-1 down, it doesn't happen very often. Houston does have an advantage, just like the Lakers do, in that they have home court advantage. So both those teams are down 3-1, but coming back to a home game in game 5. So you win game 5, and then you got to get one on the road and then come home for game 7, and who knows. So it feels like when you look at it, you can say to yourself, that doesn't seem that far fetched. But there's also a reason why these teams are down 3-1. And it's mostly because the better team is a team that has the 3-1 advantage, regardless of which team maybe had a better regular season record. So I think Houston can and probably will get game 5. And then I would expect that Golden State would probably finish it off in game 6. But even if they didn't, I still would feel pretty good about their chances of winning a game 7 on the road in Houston simply because of Steph's championship experience.
Okay. All right. Then the other series that's not being played right now, and I'm sure you have lots of thoughts. The Lakers, Minnesota. I honestly am really surprised. I don't know why I'm surprised. Because all the signs pointed to the fact that the Lakers were super top heavy. Um, but LeBron, I mean, I don't even know what to say about the fourth quarter between with that. But here's the thing. Here's the problem though. How much of that is LeBron's fault, or how much is it the fact that JJ Redick decided we're not going to play with any damn subs the whole second half, and he's just literally going to trot a 40-year-old and an out of shape Luka, because Luka's, I don't know if Luka's ever been in shape. Okay, 40-year-old LeBron, out of shape Luka, Austin Reeves, Dorian Finney-Smith, and who was the fifth one? I don't even remember. Rui.
Rui.
You have them play straight minute. I mean, LeBron played 46 minutes. He barely sat.
Right, but let me ask you this. So here's the question, right? There's been a lot of debate that I've listened to on different podcasts and read an article or two, people talking about, well, how could he do it? And it's different if it's a game 7 and there's no other alternative. But the reality is that in a one game set, right? And I know this isn't just a one off game in the middle of nowhere, it's part of a series and whatever. But if you sit LeBron and Luca, let's say they each sit, I don't know, 2 minutes. Does that 2 minutes, does it really in that one game? Now, maybe over the course of a playoff run of 2 months, if you do that to them every single game, could that fatigue add up? But for one game, if LeBron had sat from the 11-minute mark of the third quarter to the 10-minute mark of the fourth quarter, would that 3 minutes really have made the difference in that suddenly he has super fresh legs? I would argue that that's not true. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's just to me, sitting out for 3 minutes in a one game scenario, if you're not doing it over and over and over and over again, to me, I feel like that has minimal. effect on how a guy's going to play down the stretch of a game. Maybe I'm wrong, but I
I
don't
don't.
think sitting
I
for
just think
3 minutes is going to make
I
that much of a
understand. I
difference.
understand your point. I understand your point, but the tails in the tape when they shot, what did they shoot from the second half? In the fourth quarter, 5 for 17. I, I don't know. I don't. Once again, it was a decision they made. I can't say that JJ didn't be like, LeBron, are you good playing the whole second half? And LeBron probably said, yeah, I'll play the whole second half. I mean, they can't believe that JJ made that decision without talking to LeBron, right? Anyways, the bottom line is this: Anthony Edwards looks fantastic. Minnesota's done a great job defending LeBron. They've done a great job defending Luka. Luka's gotten his, but not to the point of he's taking over games. And the Lakers just don't have someone else. Austin Reeves has played all right. I don't know.
I'd say he's been disappointing based on all the talk of what potentially he could be as sort of the third banana. I feel like he's underperformed what maybe the expectation was of him coming into the series. And maybe the expectations were a little bit too high, but I feel like he's had a very pedestrian series and really he has not been nearly as impactful as people thought he was going to be coming into this series. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So the bottom line is this, Mike. I don't think the Lakers are coming back from a 3-1 deficit. I think they win the next game. I think they win this next game at home. I think they're going to get it tomorrow night, and then they're going to lose it in Game 6 versus Minnesota.
So, where are we on Anthony Edwards?
Like what do you mean? Like, here's what I'm saying. Anthony Edwards, good basketball player. Maybe he needs to make some better decisions in his social life.
Yeah, well, let's leave that aside.
No. What I'm saying is, I think is the question: what is his ceiling?
The question is, where is he right now? His ceiling is he could be the best player in the league. I mean, that's his ceiling. What he can do, what he can do physically, and what his skill set is in terms of what he's done with his shot this year, and the fact that he handles the ball, he shoots it from every level, he gets to the rim, he's physical, he's athletic. I think the one thing that holds him back is his ability to be an elite playmaker, which he's not there in terms of making other guys better. That's still the area that I think he needs to improve in the most. But that's also an area
So
that
I guess to ask your question, Mike, what players would you take right now over Anthony Edwards if we were doing a draft? Is that what you want to talk about? Like, it's like
I'm just saying, okay, so I think what I'm getting at here is Anthony Edwards has been, I would say, I feel like he's been the best player in this series. And I don't feel like it's been particularly close.
yeah, I would agree with that statement. He's been the best player in the series, for sure.
And so you're talking about, look, LeBron's 40 years old, but he's still LeBron. And then Luka, who is a consensus top 5 player in the league. And now you're looking at Edwards and saying, can Edwards take his team? And I go back to our conversation from a year ago, right? They beat Phoenix. Didn't they sweep him in the first round, I believe?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we were talking about Edwards and how great he was. And then he goes on and he has the series against Denver where they beat Jokic and the Nuggets in Game 7, where Ant wasn't particularly efficient, had a poor shooting game, but still was the guy that led them past led them past Denver to get to Dallas. And then in the Dallas series, he just sort of, I don't want to say completely faded away, but certainly was not nearly as good in that series as he had been in the series leading up to it. And so the talk of Anthony Edwards that his takeover of the league sort of cooled as a result of his performance against the Mavs last year in the Western Conference Finals. But I feel like now we're right back to that same point that we were last year, where we're like, could this guy be? Can he be the best player in the league? And I don't think he is. And he may never get there just because of some of the other guys that are right there ahead of him, or maybe coming up behind him. But he's always going to be right there because he's a guy who has elite athleticism. He has elite fundamental skills in terms of footwork and shooting and just all the things that he can do skill wise on a basketball court. And that game 4 that he put up, where he scores 43 and it felt like he controlled the action, he was involved in almost every crucial play that Minnesota had. Edwards somehow had his hands involved in it. And clearly that's a game that the Lakers had to have, because going down 3-1, now your chances of coming back are next to nothing. And for him to do what he did, as much as he arrived on the scene last year, it felt like that was sort of a signature Anthony Edwards moment. And I know it's not a clinching game, and I know there's a long way to go in this series, but I feel like Edwards has been the best player in a series that has LeBron James and Luka Doncic, and that's saying something. And so, I, does Anthony Edwards put his can he put his foot down on the Lakers' neck and win Game 5 in LA? I'm really curious to see what kind of performance Edwards comes up with on Wednesday night, because I could see him doing it. I could see him doing it and winning that series in winning that series Game 5. And then if you look ahead, I, I mean,
They're
I
the
clearly
Mike. I'm going to be honest. I think they're the team that's the most likely to beat Oklahoma City. If I had to put percentages on it,
maybe I still think I think Denver, and they're up now 9 with 3.5 minutes to go. I think Denver or the Clippers are more whichever team comes out of this series, I think is more likely to beat Oklahoma City. But I agree with you. Minnesota's a formidable opponent. I think both Golden State and Houston, I think, are going to have a lot of trouble with whichever
well,
one of those two teams gets out of
well
that
so
series.
here's what I'm going to say, Mike. Whoever Oklahoma City plays between these two teams, they're going to have a dogfight for 6 to 7 games. Whereas I think Minnesota, whoever they play, if they should they win, they're going to steamroll either of those teams.
I think you're right. I agree with you. I feel
So
like they're
Minnesota's going to get to sit and wait in the wings, theoretically, should they knock out the Lakers, and they're going to get to sit and wait in the wings while Oklahoma City and these teams beat each other up. And so that's what I'm saying. Like,
I don't disagree with you. I think Minnesota, just because of their size and because of Edwards' ability to do what he does on the offensive end of the floor, I can definitely see where they're going to be a difficult out in the playoffs for anybody, because you got to have somebody you can match Ant basket for basket, and that's tough to do. And then I look at Golden State's size, and I feel like the size of Minnesota has a chance to kind of overwhelm Golden State. And then Houston just can't score. Houston can't score. I mean, Minnesota will make life very difficult on Houston's offense. And although Houston's defense will make life difficult for Minnesota's offense, I feel like Minnesota's offense has more answers, more counters to what Houston's going to present to them than what they're going to present to Houston in terms of what Houston can do offensively. So I agree with you. And I do think that Minnesota is in good position right now, certainly to get to the Western Conference Finals. And yeah, they'll be right there giving Oklahoma City everything that they can handle if Oklahoma City can get through either Denver or the Clippers, whoever makes it out of that series. So,
yeah. All right, so we're at this point, Mike, where we've got like 3 minutes left in this basketball game. I think Denver is going to win this game. They're up 11.
that way.
Look, Denver's going to win. This is a 7-game series. in my opinion, regardless of who wins this game. You sticking with Nuggets? You're gonna stick Nuggets, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sticking with the Nuggets.
I'm gonna be contrarian. I'm gonna take the Clippers in 7, even though I think they're gonna lose this game.
I don't know. The Clippers to win two in a row. Win win
Come
on their
on,
home
big
floor.
bucket, James Harden, baby.
Your boy
So
Harden's got 11. Your boy Harden's got 11 tonight. So
he's doing really well. That's 11 more points than I have.
I guess he's only got two more than Jokic. So,
Yeah.
but Murray's got 40. So this was the this was, as you said a few minutes ago on the pod. This is your Jamal Murray game. If let's put it this way, if Denver gets, we've said it since the regular season started, if you get an approximation of playoff Jamal Murray from their title run, you get anything close to that, Denver becomes really, really, really difficult to beat. And we're seeing that tonight where Jokic hasn't
Oh,
been
that,
tremendously. I mean, he's only
that
taken,
Aaron Gordon 3 put nails in the coffin.
I think he's only taken maybe 11 shots tonight, but he's got 13 assists, I think, and I think he's at 8 rebounds or vice versa.
Yeah.
But Jokic has been just again the orchestrator, and when Murray's got it when going, it makes Denver really, really tough to deal with. And I'm just watching the Gordon three that you talked about a minute ago. So that puts them up by
17.
17 with 2.5 minutes to
Dustin.
go. So I think we can safely pencil in the Denver Nuggets for
I'm
a
going to take
3-2.
Clippers in 7, Mike. I'm still going to do it.
All right. You have a lot of faith in breaking the Clipper curse and breaking the James
I
Harden.
just want to be contrarian, Mike. I don't want to always
That's
agree
all
with
right.
you.
That's fine. That's totally fine. Well, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Denver, Oklahoma City is going to be a great series if they get Clippers. I think could have a good opportunity as well to push Oklahoma City, and maybe in some ways they're more equipped just because Oklahoma City's so deep, and the Clippers can at least come close to matching that depth. Whereas we've obviously been talking about Denver's lack of depth all throughout the playoffs to this point, and just who can play and who can't. And so we'll see. We will see
We will
which one of
see.
those teams prevails. It's a 7 game series. I think in all likelihood it would be. Although again, I could see the Clippers wilting. I really could in Game 6. The Clipper nostalgia, the ghost of Donald Sterling, all the Clippers failures of the past. It's it wouldn't be stunning to see Denver win that to see Denver win that game 6. But
All right, we'll see what happens.
see what happens. All right, so I guess the next time we talk, the Cavs will probably be at least one game, if not two, into their second round series, and obviously this Clippers Nuggets series will be wrapped up, as will the Knicks Pistons, which has been, I think, a much more interesting series than we thought. So it's been a fun postseason so far, as you said. Definitely been a lot of great games worth staying up for, and not getting maybe as much sleep as you and I probably need to remain healthy at our young ages. But nonetheless, fun NBA postseason so far. Looking forward to seeing how far our Cleveland Cavaliers can get, what they can do. Jamal Murray just banged home another three, so he's got 43, and
I
the
turned it
Nuggets
off,
are up
Mike. It's
by
over. It's a wrap.
Nuggets are up 20 with just under 2 minutes now. So yes, I think we could safely pencil in the Nuggets for a 3-2 series lead. The Nuggets are a resilient team, man. I think that's the thing that when you look back to last year, it's completely surprising that Minnesota was able to get them in game 7. Kind of amazing because I feel like Denver is a tough, resilient team, and they really showed that tonight. I mean, they could easily folded at a couple points during this series, and the fact that they fired their coach 3 days before the regular season ended kind of tells you where they were at from a mental standpoint. So it's quite a story there in Denver. Plus you're
Yep.
carrying whatever is going on with Russ. So anyway, all right, let's wrap it there. Thanks to everyone for listening tonight to this NBA episode of the Hoopheads Pod, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks.
All right.